Hello and welcome to the daily newspaper analysis. Today we shall be discussing the newspaper of the 8th of March. So coming to the first article, the power of numbers. Now the context here is that this article is written in the backdrop of the hashtag #MeToo campaign. This campaign has been recognized as Time Magazine's Person of the Year for the year 2017, and all the women who came up with this #MeToo campaign, they have been featured on the cover page of the Time magazine. So that is what is the context here. Now coming to some background, first and foremost you need to understand what is this #MeToo campaign. Now basically this #MeToo campaign was a social media campaign where a string of allegations were made by women who were celebrities, and these were the women who had a public image. So despite the celebrity status which was at stake, these women came up with these allegations to highlight the widespread nature of sexual violence which women face at workplace. And this was largely in Hollywood, in the context of Hollywood, where the Hollywood mogul Harvey Weinstein was accused by several actors. So that is what is the context and background here. Especially this campaign was started by the Hollywood celebrity Ashley Judd. So that is something that you need to know in the background aspect. Now coming to the issues which are important for us with regards to this #MeToo campaign. The first issue is with regards to the power of social media. Now here you can see that how two simple words, that is Me Too, have helped so many women to come out with the grievance that they have held for so long against the violence which they had suffered in the past. Not only in this case, we have seen that several movements are what are being seen on social media. For example, it is often transgenders' rights that are discussed on social media. The gay rights are discussed on social media. So it indeed has acted as a means of empowerment. It has ensured some deepening of democracy. So that is what is important for us here with the power of social media. Another thing which is important is a comparison between celebrity women versus ordinary women. Now this Me Too campaign was largely a campaign which was led by celebrity women. Now these women are more empowered vis-a-vis the women who are not celebrity. So the question is being raised that is it easier for celebrity women to come out with their grievances, whereas it is difficult for ordinary women to come out with such kind of cases of violence. So is there a difference between these two sections within the women themselves? So is it a need to focus more on the empowerment of ordinary women? So that is one analysis which can be drawn out of this campaign. So that is something that is relevant for us. Another thing which is important is with regards to lack of accurate statistics. Now this is a very important point, and this is something that is pertinent especially in the case of India. Now in India there is often a claim that is made by experts that accurate statistics is something that is missing. This is largely because the issue of sexual violence is a matter of shame and stigma in India, and as a result of which not many cases are reported, and women are often held back in reporting what they have faced. So that is something that makes the data very inaccurate, and that is one thing that has been highlighted in this particular editorial, that there is a need to ensure that some accuracy in data is something that is maintained. Another thing which is very important is with regards to insensitivity in acquiring data. Now this editorial has discussed about the National Family Health Survey. Now as per this National Family Health Survey, a questionnaire is what was prepared, and women were supposed to answer this questionnaire, and based on this questionnaire data was collected. But the issue is that this questionnaire was prepared with utmost insensitivity. Privacy concerns of the women were not addressed, as a result of which not many women felt enough empowered or felt the confidence to confide in this particular questionnaire or this survey. So that is one issue which needs to be addressed, that whenever data is to be collected on a sensitive matter as sexual violence, then it is a matter which is very sensitive. In that regard, some degree of care is what the data collectors have to show. So that is one analysis which has been drawn here. Another thing is stigma of the survivors. Now here you need to know that sexual misconduct against women is often seen as a stigma in the society, and this is something that continues even today. For that matter, even these women who did come out with their agony under the hashtag #MeToo campaign, these women came up they filed their complaints, or they came up with their grievances after many years. This itself shows that how much is the stigma that is associated with survivors, and this is what is leading to inaccurate reporting of such issues, and this is also resulting in this matter remaining a hush-hush one, and as a result of which a solution to this issue is something that is not coming out. So that is one analysis which is important here. Another thing is that there is an increasing case of sexual violence. Now this is something that has been analyzed in the editorial. Some figures are what are given, but these figures are not something that are welcome in UPSC. So much of facts UPSC does not provide the scope for writing so many facts. So the analysis is what is important. So definitely the editorial discusses that there is an increase in cases of sexual violence, and both against men as well as against women. But what is being seen is that against women, the cases of sexual violence are somehow more than what they are against men. So that is something that is important. Another thing which is important is with regards to the silence. Now here you need to understand that the silence against this issue is something that is a pertinent problem. As I've told you, these women had kept silent for many years, and even today it is the common women in small towns are still silent on sexual violence, and this is one major concern. In the year 2013, we had the protection of women at workplaces, protection of women against sexual harassment at workplaces law. So even under this law, the reporting is less. This clearly shows that women still are silent on this issue, and that is one of the major concerns which has been highlighted in the editorial. Another issue is with regards to the impact that this #MeToo campaign has had. Now, first and foremost is a positive impact. Now, definitely it has done some undoing of this silence aspect. Another thing is that it has provided a platform for turning a private trauma into a collective voice of anger and indignation which these women have faced. Also, these women have got a lot of solidarity towards their cause. So those are some positive impacts. But there is also a negative impact, or rather a neutral impact. The negative aspect is that despite this campaign being so successful, this has not replicated into a legal accountability of the person. So that is one issue which is important here. That often on social media, it is only the debates, and debates are what are held, and often the guilty is not brought to the book based on social media campaigns. So this is one negative aspect of a social media campaign which you can use in your answers also. Another analysis is with regards to the limited accountability. Now this is coming from the first issue, the above issue only. One is that there is indeed a limited access to social media itself in our country. So as a result of which there is a limited accountability. Even if women in India wish to come under such kind of a social media campaign, then how many women can come? It can only be the educated women or the women who have digital literacy, who are using social media. But a large section of Indian women are not there on Facebook. So definitely there is a case of limited access. Another thing is that will such kind of campaigns change the attitude of men, or will they actually bring about a particular social change? That is something that is still questionable. So that is the analysis here. Indeed, this campaign is very important. It can be given as an example in the General Studies Paper 1 social issues. Also, it can be used as an example whenever you are analyzing a question on social media, or also in attitudinal change in ethics. So that is going to be the relevance of this issue. Now coming to the next article, our toasters are brave. Now basically the context here is about living with the Internet of Things. Now some background is what is vital here. First and foremost, you need to know that the term Internet of Things was coined by Peter T. Lewis in the year 1985. So that is something that you need to know. Also, what is Internet of Things? Some definition is something that is important. Now, Internet of Things can simply be understood as an ecosystem of connected physical objects, or of internetworking of physical devices. These are some definitions which you can use. Now, these are devices which are going to be accessible through the internet. Now, for example, these devices are known as smart devices. For example, I have a smart watch. Now, it might happen that I might lose my smartwatch and I want to search my smartwatch. Then what might happen is that instead of physically going and searching it, I can search it through the internet. For example, I can locate where is the GPS location of this watch, or for that matter, I can give a call to this watch if it is connected through the Internet of Things. So this is the simplest explanation of Internet of Things. Now, coming to the issues which have been raised in this editorial, the first issue is with regards to rise of Internet of Things. Now, here the editorial analyzes that in the next century, the planet Earth will almost be wearing an electronic skin. That is the level of rise of Internet of Things that we are going to see in the future. So that is something that is important for us. Another thing that has been analyzed is the uses of Internet of Things. Now, definitely this is going to be a revolutionary technology which is going to have many uses for us. For example, in the health sector, there can be sensors which can monitor the heart rate and respiration rate of a person for 24/7. This can help diagnose diseases. It can help take precautions. So that is one utility of Internet of Things. Another thing is that in a city, such kind of Internet of Things or sensors is what can be located. This can help accurately track traffic rules or traffic rule violations. So all of this can be the uses, and this can be largely used in the concept of the smart city which India is planning. So that is one analysis which is important here with regards to the uses. Another thing which has been analyzed is with regards to the growing market of Internet of Things. Now, what has been analyzed here is that the market for Internet of Things is booming and it will rise many-fold in the future. For example, in the year 2013, the market was approximately $1.9 trillion, and this is expected to rise to $7.1 trillion by the year 2020. So you can see how much is the increase. Now, at present, already 50 billion things by 2020, I'm sorry, the figure is for 2020, that by 2020 almost 50 billion things will be connected with Internet of Things. Also, 90% of the cars will become connected with the internet. So that is something that has been analyzed. These are some figures which you can show to elaborate upon the fact that how much is the market going to increase in future. So that is what is the analysis here. Now, another very important issue with Internet of Things is the issue of privacy. Now, here before we delve into this aspect of privacy, you need to understand that privacy has now been given the status of a fundamental right in India. However, Internet of Things often will lead to creation of a big data. For example, what is the TV watching schedule of a person, or where does a particular person drive, how much time he takes in his car. All of these things will be generated as data once these things are connected with internet. Now, all of these can lead to a lot of breach of privacy, and also it can lead to security concerns. For example, if through Internet of Things it is known that in a particular house, for a particular period of time, there is no person who is present in a particular accommodation, and this data is somehow leaked, then this can be misused, and that is one security threat that comes with Internet of Things. And there are many such other threats which do come. So regulation in this regard is something that is vital. So that is the analysis here. Another issue is with regards to the smart users. Now, I told you the things which are using Internet of Things will be known as smart devices. So if the devices are going to become smart, what is important is that the users will also have to be made smart. Otherwise, there are chances that the users can get discriminated against, or they can fall prey to the adverse impacts of technology. So that is something that India needs to also focus upon increasing the digital literacy of its users to meet the future of Internet of Things. So that is something that is important here. Another thing which has been analyzed is with regards to future planning and scenario planning. Now, this simply means that we do not know what will be the future with Internet of Things. In that case, the governments have to plan for future, and they have to be prepared for all scenarios. For example, at present, we are seeing that there is a war almost between technologies which are changing every single day. So that is one future analysis that should be done. And in that regard, the government should have adequate preparedness. So that is something that has been analyzed here. Indeed, artificial intelligence and Internet of Things are two very important topics. So that is the relevance here. Now, coming to the next article, the ecologically subsidized city. This is one of the most important editorials for today, and this idea should be replicated by you somewhere in your UPSC 2018 means. So that is going to be the relevance here. Now, coming to the context is with regards to Mr. Dhruba Jyoti Ghosh. Now, Mr. Dhruba Jyoti Ghosh was an ecologist. He has recently died, and as a result of which this editorial has been written on him. He worked towards saving the ecologically critical East Kolkata wetlands. So that is something that you should know about him. Now, in the background, what is vital is that Mr. Dhruba Jyoti Ghosh in the year 1990 was named as a UN Global 500 Roll of Honor Laureate. Those are some of his achievements. In the year 2016, he received the prestigious Luke Hoffman Award from the IUCN. So that is something that you should know about him. He's a great figure in terms of ecology. So that is something that becomes important here. Now coming to the issues which have been discussed. The first issue is with regards to the rural ecological wisdom. This is a key word which you should replicate. Now what had happened is that in Kolkata there were some wetlands, and wastewater used to go to these wetlands, and these wetlands would purify this water naturally. There was an oxidation process which took place within these wetlands. For example, the algae and bacteria acted on the wastewater, and in the presence of sunlight, this water used to get comprehensively treated, and it used to get purified. This treated water was then used by the farmers there locally for irrigating their vegetables, for irrigating their paddy, and also in this water, a large amount of fishes were generating. So this also became a source of fishery. So this was one sustainable model which was existing in the wetlands of Kolkata, and it is this model that Mr. Dhruva Jyoti Ghosh studied, and he's protected this entire wetland. So that is his contribution. Another thing is that it was after the efforts of Mr. Ghosh that this site, the eastern wetlands of Kolkata, were declared as a Ramsar site in the year 2002, and this prevented these wetlands from encroachment. So that is one huge achievement that was done by Mr. Dhruva Jyoti Ghosh. So that is something that is important for us, that if such models are replicated, then other wetlands in the country can also come under the Ramsar Convention. So that is the analysis here. Another issue which has been highlighted in the editorial is a comparison between wetland and wasteland. Now the problem in India is that a large number of wetlands are often looked upon as wastelands, and they are misused. The term is what has been used here, that this is equivalent to ecological ignorance, and this is something that needs to be curbed. So this is one important analysis here. Another issue which has been analyzed is the case of increasing urbanization. Now what has been analyzed here is that urbanization is on a rise, and this is a steady rise. And if urbanization is rising, then definitely there is more pressure on sewage infrastructure. So in that backdrop, if we have this organic sewage treatment plant in the form of wetlands, then this is a huge achievement, and this idea needs to be replicated in other urban areas also. So that is the analysis here. Another issue is with regards to the economic benefits of wetlands. Now the editorial here has discussed that if approximately 750 million liters of water is generated, or wastewater is what is generated per day, then an annual cost for its treatment would be equivalent to $25 billion. And if on the contrary wetlands are protected, and this model is what is used in cities, then definitely the economic benefits are huge. So there is no question about that. And another analysis is that I told you that in these wetlands there was a huge amount of scope for fishery. People were using this water for irrigation. So it was almost supporting the lives of 1 lakh people, and that is again one economic benefit of these wetlands. So that is something that has been highlighted. Another issue is with regards to the ecological benefits. Now it is undeniable that wetlands are one of the most diverse ecosystems, and as a result of which it has huge ecological benefit because it ensures a thriving of flora and fauna. So that is what is important here. Another thing which is important is the model of development. Now this is the model of development that we are following in the 21st century, and this is a model of development which is a top-down model. It is a model of globalization which has been advocated to us from the foreign countries. But in this, what we are ignoring is the traditional knowledge of our people. The model of development which Gandhiji had also advocated was a bottom-up model. This is something that is being advocated here, that how can we ignore the wisdom that our people have had for so long. So that is the analysis here, that the model of development is warranting a change, and this can be given as an example in the globalization, anti-globalization debate also. So that is also important. Another thing is with regards to wetland degradation. Now here you need to know that according to many studies, according to the 2005 UN Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, it is found that the wetlands are amongst the most endangered ecosystems in the entire world. And with the utility of wetlands being so high, a case is what is made for the protection of wetlands. So that is something that has been analyzed in the editorial also. Another thing is that with regards to the central idea which has been given here is that the central idea was that of Mr. Dhrubajyoti Ghosh. His idea was that environment should not be merely an afterthought in the operation of a market economy. What is the present scenario is that that we are only thinking about environment when it is degrading, and we are not considering as environment as a holistic part of our lifestyle itself. So this is what Mr. Ghosh had advocated, that until and unless environment is considered as a necessity of life and not as a resource which needs to be protected, till then a sustainable development cannot be made. So that is the entire analysis of this topic. It is a very important topic for sustainable development. It is an important topic in development, in the globalization, anti-globalization debate. So that is something that is the relevance of this particular issue. So you should replicate it somewhere in your answers. Now coming to the next article, rooftop energy. Now the context here is with regards to Bengaluru's aerial mission to produce a 3D map of rooftop solar power potential using the technology of light detection and ranging, which is known as LIDAR. Now some background is what you should know. At present, India has a goal of 175 gigawatt of renewable energy. Out of this 175 gigawatt, 100 gigawatt is to be generated through solar power. And from this 100 gigawatt of solar power, 40 gigawatt is what the government wants to connect to the grid by the year 2022. So these are some figures which you should have a knowledge about. So this is something that is important. Now coming to the issues which have been highlighted in this particular editorial. The first issue is with regards to steady urbanization. Now we all know that urbanization in India is rising by every single day, and as a result of which there is a demand for higher power in each of these urban areas. And these rising power needs in cities can be compensated by rooftop solar systems, and that is what has been analyzed here. And this will also ensure that residents become partners in this effort of renewable energy. So that is one analysis which has been given. Another thing is with regards to the fears of the solar industry. Now at present, the solar industry in India is facing some fears. For example, they are fearing that the government might impose some safeguards duty or some anti-dumping duty on the imports of solar equipment. This is something that was even raised at the WTO, where India lost a case in the WTO when US complained that India was imposing undue duties on import of solar input. So that is something that is important that you should know. Another thing that the industry is fearing with regards to the GST. So all these impacts are something because of which solar power industry is not rising. So the government needs to address these concerns and assuage them and give a impetus or push to the solar industry. So that is what has been analyzed. Also, there are some challenges which the solar industry is facing. For example, there is a challenge of land acquisition and transmission connectivity. Also, at present, the rooftop solar power is only 11% of the total solar power that is being generated in the country. So the potential is very high, which needs to be acted upon, which needs to be benefited from. So that is something that has been analyzed here. Another thing which is very important here is the International Solar Alliance. You should know that India is the founder member of the International Solar Alliance in the Paris Climate Change Meet. So in that regard also, an impetus to solar energy is something that is indeed warranted. So that is something that has been analyzed here. Another thing is with regards to the investment potential in this area. Now there is an enormous investment potential in solar power. For example, there are improvements in solar cell efficiency and the battery technology. And as a result of which, this rooftop solar potential is something that can be exploited. It can be of economically viable option. It can be a profitable endeavor. So that is something that has been highlighted in this particular editorial, and the government should focus upon maintaining that the investment potential in this industry is reaped. So that is something that is important. Now again, solar energy, renewable energy is much important for us. So that is the relevance. Now coming to the next article, be alert to Operation Dhakka. Now basically the context is with regards to the statue of Lenin which was felled in Tripura. Now this editorial is something that is not very important because it becomes a political one, but at least this episode becomes important to be used as an example of intolerance. So that is going to be the relevance here. Now coming to the issues, first and foremost, you should know something in the background aspect, that this statue was felled in Tripura after the BJP government has won and the 25-year reign of the Communist Party has now ended in Tripura. So as a result of that, the statue was felled. It was a mob violence, and similar responses as what is being seen in some other states. For example, in response to this felling, it was Dr. Shama Prasad Mukherjee's statue that was black inked in West Bengal. Similar attempts were made against Periyar's statue. So this is a trend that is continuing in the country. So that is something that is important from the background aspect. Now coming to the issues, the first issue is that of importance of each leader. Now here you need to understand that there are different leaders, and each leader might cater to one sector and might not appeal to another sector. For example, the ideas of Lenin and the ideas of communism might be welcomed by one section of the society and might not be liked by another society. But what is important is that leaders of each section are respected by the other. And this is the analysis which is important here, that what has happened is that the leader of one section of the society has been disrespected. So that is what becomes important. It shows an intolerance in the society. So that is important. Another thing is that it shows the mindset of the people. The mindset and attitudes of people are towards vandalism and towards bulldozing, towards bullying. These are some terms which have been used in this editorial, so you can replicate them, that the attitude is of intolerance. So that is important. Another thing that is important here is the government's response. Now, it is not the government of the state, but rather the central government. These people who have felled this particular statue, they have some affiliations to the ruling party BJP. So the issue that has been raised here is that often the government's response is cold. However, in this case, you should know the Prime Minister himself has criticized such acts, and the Ministry of Home Affairs has also issued a warning. So that is the government's response here. Another thing which is very important is with regards to India's image. Now, you need to know that Lenin was a global leader. He has followers across the world. So when such kind of images are highlighted, where the statue has been felled and his head has been used as a football and his statue is lying in garbage, then this brings bad name to the entire country's image, and that is what has been highlighted in this editorial. Another thing is the issue of democracy. Now this statue, this kind of vandalism is what has been done in the aftermath of elections in Tripura. So a paradox is what has emerged, that where on one hand it is the victory of democracy, on the other hand such acts itself defeat democracy. Now democracy is a scenario, it is an ideology where the voices of every single section is what is heard. And if these are the developments that will happen in the aftermath of an election, then these raise questions upon the actual value of democracy that does exist in the society. So that is one analysis which you should understand here. Another thing is with regards to the rule of administration. Now this should have been a role of administration. Now administration has a preemptive role to play in such scenarios. Time and again it is being seen that the administration is failing to curb such incidents, and that is one criticism against the administration which has been made in this particular editorial. It is also being said that the administration is playing a laid back role because the actions are being done by the members of the ruling party. So that is again one criticism against the administration. Another thing is that the dangers of such kind of episodes is what has been highlighted. First and foremost, there is a danger directly to democracy. As I've told you, democracy is of no value if such episodes exist. Another thing is that there is a danger that such kind of episodes might further in future snowball into a more violent scenario. So that is something that has been highlighted here. This indeed article will be important as an example in intolerance. So that is going to be the relevance here. Now, based on today's discussion, please try and attempt these questions within a word limit of 150 words. And with this, we finish today's discussion. I thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you tomorrow.